Good morning, LinkedIn. Welcome to Let's Build Daily. I'm your host, Chris Carolan, building in public today. And in preparation for a lunch and learn next week with the HubSpot pre-sales team to go over B2B order portal management in HubSpot, try to create some more awareness around what's possible with all the new tooling in HubSpot. I think orders and order management, alongside things like Commerce Hub and CMS Hub, are really what will turn HubSpot into a full customer platform for many organizations that have just not had the platforms and tools they've needed to match a great customer experience with great internal processes. A lot of times, if your internal process is, let's say a well-oiled machine, that's often because you've built a system that's you completely control, that does not get impacted by unknowns that can be caused by human behavior. When you add customers into that mix, you either don't create a great customer experience because they have to do it the way you want to do it. They've got to fill out your 20 field form. They've got to email you. They've got to call you in order to get what they want. There's no self-service. And we see that's not really working anymore. Or you've been so focused on the customer experience that your processes internally are a little chaotic. And as you grow, that starts to break as well. And the customer facing teams are the ones that feel all of the pressure when that happens. So we try to address it with Band-Aids, like tools, like platforms. We're missing the bar on training. We're missing the bar on really empowering these people to use these tools effectively to serve the customers and their modern expectations. So, so that's what I'm getting at today. And we'll see how it goes. Working in public. So as I was thinking about what to include, I came over to the Let's Build portal, and a part of this is just understanding all of the challenges and opportunities related to HubSpot when it comes to managing data across all these new objects. What is an object? What isn't an object? How does HubSpot represent it? Where can you get to it? And as an example, like the only way to get to orders right now is through this drop down on the index, on the records index page, right? But as we see here, we've got calls, carts, companies, contacts, deals. We've got the event happily object set. We've got invoices. We've got marketing events. We've got orders. We've got products. We've got subscriptions. And we've got tickets. This compares to if we go and look at our data model. We've got a few things, more than a few things that weren't in that list. And we see we are viewing all objects. So this is where it's challenging to understand, how, HubSpot is treating each, let's say, container. So I've started using the phrase data container as opposed to object or record view, just because we know it's a thing we need to see somewhere with a specific, data set inside of it, whether it be internally or externally. But we see here like leads, line items, and quotes were not on this list. We saw calls on the list, but none of these other things. We know tasks are available in a different view. Quotes are available in a different index view. Leads are over in the prospecting workspace, but we don't see orders, subscriptions, invoices. We don't see any of the Commerce Hub objects. We don't see marketing events. All right, so this is one view. Then we look at our data management, navigation, and settings, and we see a different, collection, right? And now we have, forecast, activities, campaigns, lists, workflows, custom objects. Then, not done yet. If we click on properties, we see calls, carts, company, feedback submission. That's a new one that we haven't seen in any other view. The list that we looked at. A lot of property management, has been made available, and that's great. But one of the key ones we're missing that I'm trying to show is subscription properties. And of course, all of this stuff is just a user interface to all these things that are available to us usually, via the API or the backend or however you want to refer to it. Now, Kyle Jepsen is doing his best to address this a little bit right now and in his upcoming inbound conversations. And a while back, he shared, pull it up here. We'll be going into Canva anyways. And go over here. So when I say bringing maps together, it's literally, what I'm trying to do today. He started creating this table and asked like what was missing from it. So hopefully we can get away from like CRM objects versus other kinds of objects. Because they all, in my opinion, should be CRM objects. I'm not sure where to draw the line. I know they probably need to draw it somewhere. But figuring out this delineation between objects is on top of a lot of people's minds right now. And part of this exercise, I'm hopeful that we can, work together to help HubSpot figure this out, especially with orders, being a new object. And I'll talk about why today and some of the nuances of why things get a little, misaligned. But we can see here there's a lot of, inconsistent functionality and, visibility. Like all these question marks related to carts, invoices, orders, payments, products, quotes for records, right? So it just speaks to the challenge. And that's why. So when I'm talking to the team about B2B order portals, and this is, again, I'm going to come back to the people that are in the trenches each day and kind of paying attention to product updates and, where the nuances are can be very helpful. And like, it might take you 10 tries to set it up the way it needed to be set up, versus, one person or one try from somebody who's, let's say, overly obsessed with orders, like I am. So, if we come back here, one of the cool things I noticed today was when we come to, so this is a portal I haven't done anything with the native orders object in yet. And when I click on orders, this information used to be in a sidebar, where you would go to create an order, and then it'd be like, oh, you actually need, these integrations. So just kidding. You still need, no, you don't need integrations anymore to create orders. And it looks like, this sidebar used to just be Shopify, NetSuite, and Microsoft Dynamics 365. So it's good to see some expansion here. I'm very interested in the ShipStation integration. But you can tell, and the reason I highlight this is that when the integration is driving the object in HubSpot, that means these companies and their data structures and how they have to serve their customers are deciding property level structure of the data. And when we have at the same time, HubSpot working on native versions of the object or native other objects that sound very similar, we end up with situations. Let's see what the best way for me to, I think it's just this Excel sheet's going to be good. So since the order object is primarily driven, I feel like it's driven by Shopify, by the Shopify integration, right? So we see things like buyer accepts marketing is a default, order property. And I don't think I've created any order properties here. I haven't created any order properties in this instance. And this is actually from the conveying your message instance of HubSpot. So there's things like that. It's clearly we need a place for Shopify to send their data over. And that drives all these properties. And what we see, because of the way that people check out, in a Shopify shop, it doesn't line up, let's say, with what is needed for a manufacturing, environment. For example, when you're having to differentiate between billing and shipping on any other, in a lot of other software or in like paper forms or, like shipping to like going to FedEx or sending information to FedEx or UPS to ship stuff, you often need the company name, right? So that is missing from this billing set of information. Now, that's not to say we need to add all these properties to these objects, especially when we get to address management in HubSpot. It's a very interesting conversation right now. A lot of people are trying to solve for this in very different ways. And I'm thinking about like creating a series or roundtable, just seeing how different people are managing addresses. So if you'd be interested in that conversation or even being a part of it, I'd love to hear from you. But as an example, like if this order is associated with, the parent company, then we might not need to put, billing company as a field or as a property on the order object. But to continue, and this is where you even get a difference between Shopify as a more B2C style platform versus other e-commerce platforms. Since it's always an individual and focused on, the human that's ordering and not necessarily the company they're associated with, not B2B focused, we get to shipping. And not only do we not have company name, and if you've ever filled out a FedEx form before, you know that we don't have all the information here. You need a company name and you need the contact name, first name, last name. Since this is coming from Shopify, it assumes that the billing person is the same person that's going to manage this piece, right? And in e-commerce and B2C, I'm sure that's the case like 99% of the time. It's often rarely the case in manufacturing. And this is where, if you can understand the why behind these gaps in the data, the last thing we want to do, in my opinion, is try to map HubSpot against all these other systems that we know have been failing customer-facing teams. Because I probably need, if I'm shipping or if I'm doing order management, I need to know who's receiving the product. Like it could be a doc manager, an operations manager, logistics, right? They have a schedule they need to meet. And there are guaranteed to be emails or some kind of communications going back and forth with this person. That's where all these other systems, especially accounting and ERP, are not prepared to track that communication effectively. Right? So you got a bunch of notes that build up, a bunch of emails that exist outside of the system. And when scheduling goes wrong or when shipments are late or early, right? There's so much that happens outside of the system that naturally it's destined for failure at times. At the very least, it's destined to be very stressful, right? And a big part of this process is if we can understand all the data that's needed from the customer perspective, and then we can make a place for it in HubSpot so that we can then have it on a self-service portal. If customers, and I guarantee most customers would be ecstatic to maintain their own customer contact information for you because they need that stuff to be right. And it just creates this common bond, this common language, again, now between internal and external stakeholders, so that we're all looking at the same data. And just that alone goes so far in terms of just cleaning up these processes, saving time, reducing misinformation and misunderstanding and missed expectations, right? This is data that we all have. It's just all over the place right now. And since we're using systems that aren't designed for customer communication to support it, we're missing out on a lot of the data that happens inside of customer communications. So something else, we have a status here, external order status. It comes over as a string. right? This is the kind of stuff that you have to balance between matching like with like and doing things differently because that's the common sense way to do it, right? So if order status is a pipeline, is a project management pipeline basically, and we have like pipelines right above it, the pipeline stage, and then we've got pipeline up here. We need to make sure that this status, if the other system is managing it and that's where it needs to be maintained, is talking to the pipeline and the pipeline stages, right? This is kind of a nice to have at that point. And instead of bringing it into HubSpot and then moving, the other stuff accordingly, can we just bring the information? Because this is ripe for just, you have to maintain the same data in two different places. That's the kind of stuff that slips and is very hard to maintain. What else do we have here? Payment status, payment process. If we look at, so this is on the order. And it's like, so this helps me understand why it's taking so long to get orders in play. And I try to relate it to, what the HubSpot superpower of the orders object is going to be. I'm hoping that sessions like this can get us closer to that, because I think that's the stuff holding us back. How does this fit in to the rest of HubSpot while also serving external systems and new customer facing teams? Right. And another thing, I noticed on address still, right? So here, and this is what I mean when we say that like Shopify is determining naming conventions and property setup, like here you've got shipping zip / postal code, right? Same thing for billing. When on the company side, we've just got postal code. Oh, but then the internal name is zip. State / region over here. We have a second address, street address field. And, on this side, we just have billing state, no / region. I think, country / region and country / region code. And we just have country over here. And so very quickly, our comfortable naming conventions and, our even internal naming, as I showed, starts to break down, and you just bring a little bit of nonsense into the system sometimes, right? Like this one, order name. HS, HubSpot order name, string, unique ID as represented by a number. Why is this not called order number? Name makes no sense if it's a number, right? So I could probably just talk about this way too long, I probably already have, but these are the things when we start to try and connect the dots, like invoices, for example. We've got let me unhide this. Come on. Oh, I got it filtered, not hidden. So clear filter. All right. We've got recipient, company, street address, recipient company. We've got to we've got to align this stuff across all these brand new objects. And since the invoices were originally just built to support the QuickBooks integration was deciding what a lot of these things looked like and meant. And like here, at least we get number right. So imagine like invoice name, right? Nobody knows what the hell that would mean, but it's just a number, right? But now we've got, we've got a payment date here, and we've got to align it with a payment date, or this payment status, these payment fields. So I get it. Like I'll say this is why we still don't have like a Commerce Hub, ERD, because there's just so many nuances to this. But that's where, like, while HubSpot is very good at serving the current customer base, it also means that we're letting the integrations drive the bus. And we can't do that if we're going to end up with a HubSpot communication management system or customer experience management system that is built for the customer, not for the integration. Right? So that's why I'm so passionate about this, because there's a lot of common sense ways to approach this. And that's why it starts. Like, I think this stuff like this starts to help, like, see all of your orders in one place. We're starting to say, okay, this is why orders need to exist, in HubSpot, right? If we look at invoices, streamline your billing. See, now we can create. I can't wait for the date where there's like a create order button. So bringing all the stuff together in one place is obviously the goal here. If you look at subscriptions, right, save time. I like what they're doing with this page. But yeah, so aligning all this is challenging. And I've lost my train of thought. It's going to come over here because let's come back to the Excel sheet. Oh, yeah. So when we're trying to move away from serving the system infrastructure of these external systems that are not focused on customer experience, at least the usual B2B customer experience that we might be trying to support, you kind of have to just put all that to the side. And when we start with the customer journey, right, and work back from there, what kinds of things in a common sense fashion need to be put in place to support this journey? If we want to show the data to the customer, what does it need to look like? How does it need to be labeled? Right? Like if you asked, whenever one of the most comical conversations is when somebody that's only done product management inside of an ERP or even an accounting system starts thinking about, e-commerce. And you say, oh, great. That's a great idea. We don't have any product names in our ERP. We have SKUs and we have numbers and we have codes, none of which, sometimes even the descriptions themselves, because it's always been internal facing, even though there's some invoice and order docs that have been external facing, but the customer has no idea what that stuff means when they see it. We can't put that stuff. We can't put a page with a 9-digit SKU that means nothing and expect people are going to buy. We've got to come up with product names, right? We may have never had to do that. And what I'm positing with all this is that we don't want or need to do that in the ERP. That's not what the ERP is built for, to support customer-facing information. So let's not ask it to do that. Let's link it up with HubSpot products. That's where the name is going to be. That's where the pretty pictures are going to be. And now we're supporting customer-facing system using backend systems that are built to do each thing, right? But when we come at it from the customer perspective like that, we very quickly see where the gaps are in the system. And if we don't think about it here first, we end up waiting until the customer tries to check out. We notice that there is no place to put a shipping contact name. We go hurry up and create that field in HubSpot. And now we have shipping contact names. We just start having contact names all over the place, when in reality, I think we're going to get to a place where excellent management of contact and company association labels should be where all this information is coming from, right? I'm sure there are plenty of scenarios where it makes sense to have temporary information. But for me, it's hard to let you off the hook and not make a record for that. Like, why wouldn't you want a record for every time you ship something somewhere and you had to communicate with somebody to make sure it got there, and there's a tracking number? And like, as soon as you make any of this temporary, the whole system, like, you start building for the temporary instead of building for the standardization. And it just takes you in all the wrong directions. So that's why, like, if you have, parent and child companies set up well, if you have contacts with great labels like billing and logistics and, engineers, installers, right? Your ability to use this to manage all communications related to customer process when you've never been able to achieve that in a different way outside of your Outlook inbox, maybe. That's powerful. But we've got to look at it from the customer perspective. So I love my definition of customer platform is the place where customer processes start and end. Right? It doesn't have to be HubSpot doing everything. It's not going to do inventory management. It's not going to do product lifecycle management yet. It's not going to do accounting. It's not going to do a lot of stuff. But if we make a place for that data to come in so that they can look at it, now it supports the whole customer process, right? If we're interested, any stakeholder in the organization that has permission should be able to come into HubSpot and there not be any blind spots as to what the relationship has looked like, how it's going, what has happened, how we have handled each engagement. That's what a 360 review, a unified view of the customer looks like. And we can get there now. It's harder to get there when you let these other systems drive, like we're often forced to do when it comes to integrations, right? So now that we're here, these are some of the different ways, and I'm trying to figure out like the story, like how to tell the story in a visual way with the right amount of data, probably leaning towards, complexity, and getting the deer in headlights, look right away. But then being able to explain all the pieces of the process in a meaningful way that then after the fact, we can use this document to always be speaking from the same information. We can comment on it. So as I think about this map, I'm not putting it together so I can, present it to a huge group of people inside of a 30-minute window. First, I need it to help me think through and build out what's needed in HubSpot on the CRM side and the CMS side, and, overcome all of these little nuances. Because I can tell you, as I was, for going down to the property level, which is what I want to do, and we can see, right, if we get to, what's going to be on the order, like I noticed right away, okay, billing has first name, last name, shipping doesn't. So I'm adding it in here, right, before I add it as a property in HubSpot. And since I'm using, billing address as the template, I'm going to make it look like, I'm going to make that internal name look just like it if I can, right? And I started getting to this level as we were building out, the delivered portal, and you need to know internal names of the properties when you add properties to the, to the views, to the CMS pages. And I'd always have to pull up this spreadsheet, right? And then, the sad reality is that there's a lot of stuff to be maintained here that can create a lot of work. But this is why it's always on the list, but never gets done. There's some pretty cool tools out there. I've been meaning to try out Puzzle as a way to, help visualize and maintain your HubSpot structure from a process flow perspective. And I know that's where we're going, with things like this. They've been adding a lot of, if we view the details, we look at associations. Let me find a different one. Yeah. If we look at, click to see association details, no labels here. Let's do companies. And we can create association labels. It brings us over here. And we've got view API details. And we've got to understand, a lot of this information to create these experiences. And so this is what's behind the scenes of all the plug and play, marketplace apps that are doing a lot of great things right now. Like when you can install Event Happily and it builds the objects and it creates all the associations and creates all the views, creates the properties. They've done all this work already. They've failed and learned, still failing and learning. And all of that is an effort to create, a better product to go into this product. Right. And somewhere I guarantee there is a map that requires these kinds of information so that you can have like a strategic conversation to talk about what you want to accomplish. And you don't need a radically different document to say, hey, developer, hey, technical engineer, don't worry about any of the strategy. Just do this thing. Right? How many times do we have to go back and forth when we do that? Like, I just think there's a better way to have these, conversations. Because at the end of the day, everybody's a customer. If you want to think about it from a business perspective, like inside of the business, we're all each other's customers, or like after you clock out for the day, you're a customer somewhere and you live this, right? So it just helps grease the wheels of like when you're asking other people to do stuff, especially change, and you can posit it in the customer experience. It gets a lot, it gets easier. It gets easier to not have to rehash the same conversations over and over. And it's not that everybody needs all the details all the time. It's that we all need to be communicating from the same details all the time. And if it's always verbalizing the details, we'll never be communicating from the same details ever. That's why this documentation is so important. So what needs to be on it? So clearly, I'm adamant about the customer journey. And not like a 125 point touch point map, right? Maybe that exists somewhere, but I don't think we need to start there, because if we can just understand these are the phases of their journey and they just want to be heard, understood, and have their expectations met whenever they engage with you, it gets a lot easier to serve that. Instead of getting so tactical about how they're going to sign up for the webinar and what the page needs to look like, you just get off track really quick. So we need that journey. We need to know which objects inside of HubSpot are going to serve that journey. It's helpful, and I'll say we need to know. This is a part where the ecosystem is not doing great. We need to know which stakeholders are in HubSpot needing to use these objects, or maybe they're not in HubSpot. They're probably not in HubSpot yet, right? Like, everybody's so scared of the finance team and accounting. And while you need to respect the leverage they have over you when you're coming to talk to them, they still have customer-facing people on that team, right? They want it to be easier to manage invoices. They want to reduce the number of times they're having to reach out to do collections. They want to automate that when they can. They want to automate it in a way that's not going to, disturb the relationship with the customer. Like maybe it just something got missed, right? We're asking operations team, like this is where, CX and operations got order management. It's usually some combination of that. They want to do things better. They don't enjoy what's happening with the phones, with the calls and the emails. But understand they're not used to using systems like HubSpot. They might be used to using spreadsheets. Accounting certainly doesn't care about product names most of the time. Sometimes even company and contact names. Like, what's the ID? What's the code? What account is that connected to? That's what they're focused on. And we love them for that. Right? But just understand that it's a different class of stakeholder that we need to involve in this conversation, and we need to get better at it. So that's definitely on this diagram. And then I was just realizing this yesterday, like this is the kind of powerful messaging, even subliminal, if you want to refer to it that way, that indirect, direct messaging, whatever, that can happen with the right kind of visual and diagram, right? So we've established this big customer journey. Let's say we've got 8 stages, could be 5, could be 10, I don't think it's different for every organization because it's based on the buyer, not what you do. So for the sake of this argument, we've got 8 stages, right? We've got this high intent revenue opportunity stage. If we zoom in here, we can see we're looking at deal stages. And this is what drives me crazy right now. When people focus on HubSpot being this, being a sales CRM only, we focus all our energy and we have tunnel vision, literally tunnel vision, where we don't know what any of the rest of the platform does or could do for our business, right? We've got leads happening somewhere over here. They just come in, and now BDR, hey, gets credit for the SQO. Good job, right? And then like literally nothing happens outside of these walls. Like we're so focused on these conversions, and like here's the quoting process that we usually make way too complex because we need it to work for us and not the customer. Meanwhile, like this is the journey, right? Like you're missing out on so much when you just laser focus on that. This is why people can't do resell, upsell, cross sell. If this is where you're focused and it's always on new logo acquisition, you're missing out on the entire picture. So how can we show the entire picture while also creating focus where needed and just find that balance? Because this is the kind of stuff, like so many of these topics we've been talking about, playbooks, for example. If I know what you need, the thing that's always needed to close the sale, but is maybe that, challenging conversation with the customer, can we ask for it? How many different ways can we ask for it here via website forms or via, more casual emails that are automated to get that information, right? If we can see this from over here, or we can see over here from this spot, now we can start communicating and creating data where and when it's needed so that we have it where and when it's needed, right? How much of this journey hinges on what was promised here, what expectations were set here, or even up here? A lot of it, right? And if we're so focused here and then onboarding doesn't go well, I'm resonating with a lot of what's happening in the HubSpot ecosystem right now. It's because you sold me this. Like, oh yeah, I can do sales CRM. Let's buy it. And then I get here and I see all of this. And as a customer, when you're invested in this product and the cost is real to you, whether you want to or not, you're going to notice opportunities to do more. And when that is completely a surprise to you, it's not the best way to handle the customer experience and create like goodwill with the customer. Because then, fear of missing out, sets in, like, could I have gotten a better deal if I would have bought it, up front? Do I actually need this thing, or can I, there's just so many things. So here we've got some internal stakeholders. Again, we're repeating the customer lifecycle here. We've got deals, we've got stages, right? Stage and gate. We've got various process maps in the diagram. Can we make it so we can get down to the property level? I'm showing right here, we can. Where now, for this quote to be ready to send to the customer, we need the discount approved, right? How many checkboxes, all this process stuff that we're applying to the system right now, it just gets a lot easier to digest for people and to accept when they can see it in multiple different ways, like different visuals. Like, yes, we have to have this in order to move forward. Or if I want to get a return quote from inside sales quickly, I need to put this information out. And like, I can see that now, right? I don't always know if I'm in the tool, what's happening in the background. Why can't they just click a button and get the quote? Well, this is why, right? And this is why, if you didn't do what you were asked to do to get the discount approved, that's why you can't have the quote back, right? So looking for different ways to create common language around the system. We've got some process map there. And where it starts to get, a little sticky is the contact level, or is the property level, to the level of ERD, right? And that's where, again, like, I believe that we can organize this information in a way to tell this story so that we can have everybody involved in the room speak to any question they have without clicking all over, without changing context. Because it's like, as soon as you change context windows and you start to do this, and we're going over here, like, inherently, like, the human brain is built to check out. Like, if you say, oh, okay, we're going to pull up the ERD right now, which you just tell yourself you're not going to do, so you don't even address that part. And you've got CTO and a CRO or a sales leader in the same room. When you pull up the ERD, like, sales leaders checking out, like, but if they're the ones that want the customer portal, they need to understand why they have to be pushing their team to use the system, because if this data is not in there, the customer portal isn't going to work, right? They're not going to get the reports that they need. So we've got this, the ERD objects. And so this is how I'm kind of setting it up right now. I'm thinking about it, CRM objects, trying to differentiate between, native and custom objects, right? We have activities, and then we've got administrative objects there. And I love any feedback out there on, things that you would want to see, things I'm not showing. A couple other things before I wrap today, right? This is where I started. So if this is the journey and I'm logged in to my customer portal, what do I want to see? And how might I have created this data based on the pages that I'm engaging on, right? So as soon as I give you my contact information, I want to see it. and I don't want to go look in my email for it. Right? Did I give you the right address? I think I might have misspelled my name. How can I fix it? Do I have to send you an email to fix my name? I know I misspelled it. That's why I'm not getting the email confirmation. Maybe I can fix it real quick. Right? Same thing for my team and my company. As I'm doing research and I'm looking at application and product pages, I can be creating favorites, right? Wish lists. Now, the product library could be used to support that because it's likely creating the visual on the page that says this is SKU, this is the product, product name, here's the SKU. That's pulling from that library because that's where the image is. That's matching like our inventory and, the other systems in play. But as soon as I wish list it, now it's got to become something else because products aren't meant to be associated with specific, people or sales processes. They're on the shelf. Now that it's off the shelf, I'm going to be making changes to it. I'm going to be considering it. Maybe it goes back on the shelf. I'm going to ask a salesperson, can I get a discount? Does it come in this other color? Right? All these different things. So that's where, some kind of product of interest. App2Date has a pretty cool setup that they've done some videos on. But that's also, the duality of the deliverable object can serve that. Right? Let's say you have a wish list pipeline for deliverables. That's probably not a good example, but you can create this object that matches the product. And then you can apply specific things about the customer already, about the buyer already to that object. Like, hey, this person's in, contract manufacturing. So here's a set of properties that we're going to need to know, related to this product. If they're in environmental, like maybe there is a, sustainability checkbox that shows up or something like that, right? It becomes this wish listed version of the product, right? Any resources related to that, anything from webinars, recorded content to Academy courses, PDF downloads, everything in between, we can start to associate it. And if we serve this, then that's where we start to serve all these experiences that I've been talking about, from the portal to an academy to the store, right? Even community boards that might be related to a specific problem or support areas, right? Support team based on who owns, these various objects in HubSpot. Or who they're going to be working with. Got training, also like another courses, except, maybe this is where the certificates are created, right? A different level of engagement is happening between these objects. And it shouldn't be hard to, I guarantee you can find versions of this in your life, like outside of work or inside of work. So when you log into anything, think about what you're seeing when you log in. That's possible now with HubSpot. Just got to make the decision to do it. As we move along, demo pages. This is the difference between somebody filling out a form on a product page versus a demo page. Like, okay, if it's a demo page, better get the quote ready. Right? Store pages. Oh, they might just order right here. We don't even need deals or quotes or, any of this other stuff. Just need to take the order right now and make it easy for them to buy. And then serve up, payments and subscriptions, invoices, right? Shipment information. As we serve this information, as they're waiting for the order, can we direct them to Academy pages where they can learn about the product? So they're not flat-footed when they open up the box. They understand what they're going to get. Right. So all these things I've seen in portals, and that's what we're making space for in HubSpot. You can see not all the pink lines, not all the boxes are connected to pink lines yet, because maybe those are coming from the digital asset management system, or the contract management system, or the shipping system, the ERP, right? It doesn't have to come direct from HubSpot sometimes with these, new CRM card functionality and the extensibility that we have there. But understanding this as like a final goal, like once you have this and you have the data of all these things in various places in your organization, it's about doing the work to bring it all together. And when you bring it all together in HubSpot, this connection to data, to portal, to customer experience, it's literally like, this is how close it is, compared to other systems where I would have to be clicking around and pulling up all these other things. And that's the kind of stuff that takes these projects into like the hundreds of thousands of dollars, and just all that stuff goes away. Like you cut that bill by 80%, the hours needed by 80%. And it's important that we as an ecosystem understand this so that we're doing right by our customers. I'll leave it at that. I appreciate you hanging out today. I'm going to continue finding the opportunity so we can help our customers grow. Let's grow, people. Have a great holiday, and we will see you tomorrow.